What's good, everybody? It's the Cloud with Cap Show, UFC 308. Shout out to one of the greatest UFC fighters of all time, Max Holloway. He's fighting the current champ, Ilia Topuria, who is 15-0. He's a knockout artist. He does it all. But I'm looking at Max Holloway, looking at his resume from since he's got into the UFC. It's just been every bit of magnificent of his career leading up into this point. He's really hitting a second win right now. Max is 26-7. And we remember his most recent fight at UFC 300, he knocked out Justin Gaethje, which a lot of people were saying Gaethje was going to knock out Max Holloway, but the opposite happened. And we saw that Gaethje was pointing at, or we saw Max Holloway was pointing at the end, 10 seconds to go at the end, like, hey, let's go. Let's square up here. Let's give you a shot because we know Max Holloway clearly won the fight leading up to the last 10 seconds. So it's really Max took a chance that he didn't even need to take. But that's why people love Max. And then we have Ilia Topuria, the current champ right now, saying, hey, Max, I'm going to do that. I'm going to point to the ground the first 10 seconds of this fight. I just think Max is too smart for that. I think Max is not going to take the bait. I think Max isn't trying to get in these talking debates, all this trash talk to Ilia Topuria right now. Max is strictly business here. And that's what I love about Max. Max says, hey, we'll find out October 26th. That's what Max says. We're going to find out. We're going to find out what's really going to happen. But as far as I'm concerned, who am I taking in this championship fight? I'm leaning more towards Max Holloway. And I understand Ilia Topuria is a great fighter. He has great takedown. He can, utilize his ground and pound. And that is a huge threat against Max Holloway, who likes to stand up and bang. So if I'm Ilia Topuria's corner, I'm saying, hey, we're going to shoot for takedowns on Max Holloway. But I think Holloway's a veteran of this sport. I think he's way too experienced to just, hey, I'm going to shoot in on a takedown on Max. It's not that easy. I think Max is going to control the fight. I think obviously Max needs to keep this fight standing. If this fight's going to go to the cage and go to the ground, Ilia Topuria is going to win this fight very clearly. So I think this is a huge fight right now. I think Max Holloway needs to understand, hey, if I keep this fight standing here and I play it smart like he did against Gaethje, I think Max Holloway takes the belt back. Max Holloway's a former champion. He's a BMF champion right now, and Ilia Topuria is a dog. He really is. He knocked out Alexander Volkanovski a couple months ago, even though, he got knocked out before against Islam before that. So it's just like, really not much time off for Alexander Volkanovski, but there's no excuse. Shout out to Topuria. He's a champion for a reason, but I do think him coming into this fight, saying the things he's saying to Max, overconfident, really cocky, it just goes to show you that, hey, Max is a veteran. Max understands what's at stake. Max has been here before, and I think Max, if Ilia Topuria is going to underestimate Max Holloway, he's going to get knocked out. That's what's going to happen, and I really hopefully that does happen. I want to see Max Holloway humble Topuria. Topuria's over here, never defended his belt once. He's over here talking like he's defended it 15 times like John Jones or something. Like, no, bro. Like, you don't even have one title defense yet, bro. You're over here talking like you're the GOAT? Like, that's crazy to me. That's insane. But I'm not knocking Ilia Topuria, but it's like, all right, if you're going to talk like that, well, let's see it. I mean, this is your first title defense. This is your first true test against Max Holloway, a veteran in the UFC, an icon. So it's just like, what are you going to do? Are you going to shoot for takedowns? Are you really going to point in the first 10 seconds? Are you going to be about that trash talk? Are you going to back it up? But I just hope Max Holloway really knocks this guy out. I think that's what's going to happen. I think Max Holloway comes into this fight very ready, understanding his opponent's tendencies, understanding that Ilia Topuria is going to shoot for a takedown eventually. Understand that Topuria likes to throw the overhand right a lot. Understanding different frequencies of what the opponent does. That's what Max Holloway does great. And I think Max Holloway's game, his footwork is also underrated. Nobody talks about how quick Max Holloway is on his feet, how he moves, just kind of unorthodox, how he throws kicks, how he checks kicks, just all types of different stuff that Max Holloway does that goes unnoticed. It even went unnoticed in the Gaethje fight. Even though he didn't throw a lot of leg kicks in that Gaethje fight, he took some leg kicks from Justin Gaethje, who's arguably the greatest leg kicker in the UFC right now. It's just like, wow, Max Holloway was just eating him, was going through him, was really tagging him. So I think if Ilia Topuria comes into this fight overconfident, overzealous, just over cocky, and saying, hey, I can stand and bang with Max Holloway, I think that really that's going to be Ilia Topuria's downfall, is his overconfidence, him just overlooking Max Holloway, dude. Max Holloway's a legend. Like, when Max Holloway first came into the UFC, he fought a prime Conor McGregor, and they went the distance. That fight. That fight went only 3 rounds, but it went to decision. I'm saying Max was so young then. Same thing with McGregor. McGregor, before all the fame and money from McGregor and Max, it was just like, these guys, nobody really knew who Conor McGregor and Max Holloway was when they first fought. I think back in 2013 or 14, over a decade ago. So, he's been in this sport for so long. I think Max understands Ilia Topuria's tendencies. I think he's going to exploit them. I think Max Holloway is going to eventually catch him and knock him out. And I don't think it's going to be from hands either. I think it's going to be from a leg kick. I think Max Holloway is going to utilize those leg kicks, which he really does often in fights. But, however, I think this fight, if Max Holloway's training to his full potential, which I do think he is, use those leg kicks. I think Ilia Topuria is not ready for that. I think throwing leg kicks to the body creates separation from wrestlers. Just so many different things. But I think Ilia Topuria, yes, he's a great champion. But like I said, never defended his belt one time yet. And this is his true test. So I'm leaning more towards Max right now. Now, my pick might change up and come in this fight. But overall, I'm leaning more towards Max Holloway here. Nothing's going to convince me to go, Ilia Topuria here. I've seen Ilia Topuria fight many times. And he's a great fighter. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like, oh, man, this guy's the next legend of the UFC. No. I don't see that in Ilia Topuria whatsoever, but prove me wrong. We're about a week and a half out of this fight. I can't wait for it. And like I said, I'm going Max Holloway by knockout. Give him a good slice of humble pie for Ilia Topuria, and it's back to reality for him. And then we got the second fight, Robert Whittaker versus Chimaev. Finally, Chimaev is finally back in the UFC. His last fight was last year against Usman in a 3-round fight, which he dominated Usman in the first round. The second and third round, we could arguably say Usman won those rounds. But they gave it to Chimaev. But, Chimaev in the past 2 years has not been active whatsoever. I think a lot of it has to do with health concerns and this and that. But overall, no excuses aside, it's just like for Chimaev, he came in to the UFC with all this hype. Everybody was saying, Chimaev this, Chimaev that, the next great thing. And then we come to think about it. Well, now we fast forward 2 years later, he's really inactive. So, for me, to be a superstar in the UFC, you have to be active. You have to be fighting 3+ times a year. Somebody like Alex Pereira, the pound-for-pound king right now. So, I'm looking at Chimaev and saying, hey, this is a true test for Chimaev. It really is. Chimaev is 13-0. And we look at Robert Whittaker, been in the UFC for a while. He's 27-7, lost to Izzy twice. He's on a 2-fight win streak right now. This fight should have happened probably about 6 or 7 months ago. And really, Chimaev had an opportunity to fight. At the time, the 170 champ was Leon Edwards. So he was supposed to fight Leon Edwards last year, and Chimaev had to pull out of that fight too. So I think Chimaev is really on thin ice dealing with Dana White in the UFC. Dana White might have to bite the bullet here and say, well, Chimaev, if you're not going to fight ever, what's the point of you being on the UFC roster? You're a Lamborghini, but every 5 miles you go, you run out of gas. That's what Chimaev is. That's similar to what Chimaev is. A Lamborghini, fast, strong, but 5 miles later, he runs out of gas. He gets tired. Same thing in the real fights. Round 3, Chimaev barely breathing, just, trying to get by, escape the rounds. And I believe this fight right here is a 5-round fight. So this is a huge test for Chimaev, who's been really inactive the past 2 years. So this is a big test. Robert Whittaker's a dog, but right now I'm still going to go with my gut. I'm going to go Chimaev here. I'm going to go Chimaev, understand all the stuff that's outside of the octagon, the health concerns, everything leading up to Chimaev. Right now, I'm still going to go, my money is going to be bet on Chimaev. He's just an elite wrestler. He's going to take you down. He's going to utilize his ground and pound. And I think for Robert Whittaker, he understands what's at stake. He understands how this fight could possibly go and how he wants it to go. Robert Whittaker has great knockout power. So, obviously, one mistake from Chimaev, he could be knocked out. And really, if Chimaev does end up getting knocked out, which I don't think will happen, I think that'll be the end of the Chimaev train, the hype train for sure. A couple fights in 2 years, that's not enough. When Chimaev first came to the UFC, he was fighting all the time. Now he's barely fighting. So, is it the health concerns? What is it with dealing with Khamzat Chimaev? What's the problem here? I don't know, but I'm still going to bet on Chimaev here. He's 13-0. I think UFC needs Chimaev to win here. Why do I say that? Robert Whittaker's been in the UFC for a while. This guy's he's 30 years old right now, relatively new. But, as far as elevating yourself to the next level, Chimaev, this is the fight right here. If Chimaev wins by just smashing this guy, then Chimaev could say, hey, I want to fight Du Plessis at 185 for the belt. Okay, then we might say, hey, Dana might give him some leverage for that, but he's got to win in spectacular fashion. Let's say Chimaev does win by unanimous decision. I think he, a couple more fights until Du Plessis. I don't think you should just be like, yep, Chimaev, title fight after this one fight. It's like, bro, you've been inactive so much in the past 2 years. You bailed out of so many fights, had to cancel fights. How'd that go well with the UFC? UFC's probably losing money when Chimaev cancels some of these fights. You think Dana White's happy when Chimaev's over here, laughing about being overweight when he was supposed to weigh in at 170, weighing in at like 178, 179? Chimaev is laughing on the scale. Like, bro, this isn't a joke here. This is a big business. This is a billion-dollar company in the UFC. You cannot be joking around, Chimaev. Like, what is it going to be? Is it going to be, are you going to be the kill everybody like you said before, or are you kind of just going to shy away from it? So, I'm still going to bet on Chimaev. I think he's going to come out, and I hope Chimaev dominates Robert Whittaker. I hope he does, and I just hope Chimaev just continues to elevate his game in the UFC, because fighting once every year is not enough. So I think Chimaev, this is a fresh start for Chimaev to get back in the routine, fight 3 times a year, fight for the belt sometime next summer against Du Plessis. Hopefully that'll go, but I like Chimaev to win by knockout against Robert Whittaker. Let's go! And then we got the third fight. This guy, I really don't even know how to pronounce his name. Magnum Makalov, some overseas guy. He's 19-1. He's a light heavyweight. So what this guy wants to do, once he wins, I do think he's going to win. He wants to fight Alex Pereira. This guy's a wrestler. He's a great grappler. That's going to be an interesting fight. He's going to have to handle business at UFC 308 to get that opportunity to fight Alex Pereira. Everybody says Alex Pereira has no grappling, but yet he has not really been taken down in many of the UFC fights he's been in already. Even though there are a few where he's gotten taken down, Izzy's the one that I recall the most. But overall, it's just like, man, we're talking about a guy who could knock you out with one hit. That's it. Lights out. Over with. You're waking up in a hospital bed the next day. That's the pound for pound king right now. Okay, and Alex Pereira. So, if he wants to go with that, I think the UFC is going to build that up. A grappler versus striker. This is going to be the biggest test yet for Alex Pereira. I can't wait for that fight. Then we have another guy on there. I don't know how to pronounce his name either. He's one eye. He's overseas. He only fights on overseas cards. I don't understand why he never fights in America, but this guy's the real deal, and I'm going to bet on him. Even though he's got one eye, I'm betting on him. He's 14-0. He's young. I think he's 170, maybe 185 weight class, one of the two. But this dude, one eye dude, that's what I call him, the one eye dude. I think he's going to win. I've seen him fight. He's a dog. He's a beast. You can tell he just grew up as an infant into a fighter. That's all you need to know. So that's who I'm going with. But going back to the main event of the evening, Max Holloway versus Topuria. Like I said, I'm going Max. After seeing Max put on a clinic at UFC 300 when he was doubted the most, everybody said Justin Gaethje was going to knock him out. He doesn't have knockout power anymore. I'm telling you right now, Max Holloway's coming into this fight wanting it. He wants the beef. He wants everything. He wants everybody to doubt him. That's when Max Holloway shines the best. So I think in this fight, Ilia Topuria is favorite, which, okay, you're the champion. You should be favorite. But when Max Holloway's an underdog like he was against Gaethje slightly, that's when Max Holloway performs the best. And I can't really bet against Max. I love Max as a fighter. He's one of my favorite fighters of all time. He means business. That's what he means. And when I hear the press conferences with him and Topuria, he means business. We'll find out October 26th. You can say what you want, Illy. You can say all these different things, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, they're going to lock the cage, and we're going to find out, me and you. Your team ain't going to be able to help you. You know what I'm saying? Your coaches, yeah, they might be able to talk to you, but they really can't help you in the fight. They can't help you fight Max Holloway. Literally, they can't. So, I can't wait for this fight, man. I'm going Max by knockout. I hope he just humbles Ilia Topuria. I'm not the biggest Ilia Topuria fan because I feel like he just minimizes people. Ever since he became champion, he became a different person, and he thinks he's better than everybody. He thinks he's like the UFC GOAT all of a sudden. Bro, you have 0 title defenses. Come on, bro. Really? John Jones is laughing right now, drinking coffee and bourbon right now, thinking, this guy, are you serious? This guy? It's just funny to me. But Max Holloway, you heard it from Cap, no Cap. Max Holloway, Chimaev in a 2-legger at UFC 308. It's going to cash. It's the Cloud with Cap show. Let's go!